Welcome back, Outriders, to another build video. This one is my near optimized Technomancer build for in-game. So if you want to push Eye of the Storm solo or for teams, this build will work for you. If you want a gold tier and gold star, all of the expeditions in the game, beat them in the fastest time possible or below, this build will work for you. So I'm going to take you through exactly what I do and how I build this thing. So for the class, I'm going into the Pestilence top tree, kind of aiming down towards vulnerability. So the overall goal here is to build as much toxicity, duration, and inflict the bonuses that I can on toxic inflicted enemies, as well as spreading the vulnerability and improving that with like Marked of Execution. Other than that, I hit around through all the standards and of course aim for assault rifle damage, as you can see right here. Now I'm going to be completely transparent with you. You could put out some big numbers, possibly even considerably more damage with a rifle build, and if you were to do that, I would recommend going the Sniper Master, probably nitrogen capsules if you can, and avoid, you know, these bottom two, and then of course sniper weapon damage if you want to opt into that route, and it will be great. You can hit over 2 million crits with that. But again, I like this build a little more because not only is it friendly to the casual player and doesn't require headshots and crits to be more consistent like with the rifles, but it's also better for console and controller players because of that too. Lastly, two sides of the power is a must-have for me. Of course, you sacrifice a little to get that gain, but I think it's worth it. The extra mag, the toxicity, and of course the empowering antenna is huge for this build. So basically the blighted turret is spammable. You can keep throwing it every handful of seconds and continuously keep this buff up for you and your allies, and that is massive for this build. So as for the skills I have, I'm working with the blighted rounds, which is a given. Cold snap is kind of a hybrid usage skill. So when I'm playing expeditions and I'm trying to run these as fast as possible, I use it offensively. I run at them and then freeze the room and then headshot all of them and kill them all. But in something like Eye of the Storm, where I need something to potentially save my butt, Cold Snap is defensive. Then I have Blighted Turret. Now, depending on what I'm doing, I run this normally. If I'm running through standard expeditions on tier 15, I run this with Poison and Toxicity, and I build towards armor, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But for Eye of the Storm, you need crowd control for a certain few characters inside of it, not to spoil anything. And there's a mod that allows me to convert this into freeze, and that's what I use it for. So there's two ways I work with Blighted Turret depending on what activity I'm doing. I'll explain it here in a second. Now, to bring up what I'm using, again, I'm built and spec'd around the assault rifle. I'm a big fan of the tactical variants. These things are absolutely amazing to me, and I am using the Inferno Seed Legendary. There is obviously room to grow with this. Status power really isn't going to do much for me. Ideally, I would like to have close range damage right there, but it is what it is, and I think it's great for what it is. It's a great placeholder weapon until I can find a better epic version of the Assault Rifle Tactical to plug in the stats that I want. Killing Spree I put on there. Brain Eater is obviously going to help, but isn't like obviously an optimized mod. So build that how you want, and I completely use this entirely. Looking on over here for the helmet, as you can see, this is not an ideal roll. Like I said, I need more optimization, and there's still room for me to improve. Ideally, I would like to have, and this is on all the armor, pure firepower, long range damage, close range damage, and of course critical hit damage. I've got max health right there. That's not doing much for me. The healing received is not doing much for me. The long range damage is useful. Now the mod, as you can see, number one, the ice component. This is what I use for Eye of the Storm. I would not be using this at all if I was doing standard expeditions, but this is going to be the crowd control that I need to push the boss fight in Eye of the Storm. Seismic Impulse really does nothing for me. It's there. I have a lot of room for upgrade in the helmet department. And to give you guys a perspective, if I was running expeditions, this is what I use. So the mod I aim for when I'm trying to speed run is the Blighted Turret one, because it brings down the armor of the enemy's hit by 30% for 5 seconds, and that's going to allow me to scale and burst through that. As for the chest piece, of course, the trick up the sleeve is essential for running the Blighted build. There's a little bit of wiggle room depending on what mods you may have on your guns, but again, another max health. Ideally, I'd like firepower. Status and healing don't really do much for me either. A lot of room for improvement, and you can see it's only level 49, not 50. So I got a long way to go. Then this is what I'm looking for. The firepower, the close range, the long range. You can't ask for a better pair of pants. That's pretty much what I'm looking for. The spare mag is huge in case you blow through it. And of course, Bloodlust is absolutely massive. Then we're going to school down to the gloves here. Max health, not doing much for me. Close range damage, great. Status, not so much. Critical analysis. So the crit damage is great. So crit damage is huge in this game. Arguably one of the most important things to build. And then, of course, I have Dum-Dum Bullets, which is great for assault weapons because I'm using them. But again, there are definitely better options than that one in that category. So if you're following, the only role that I have, I mean, Ice Trap also, I didn't mean to skip past that, but that saves your butt in expeditions. That's a great mod. Not so much in Eye of the Storm, though. But if you're following, only one of my pieces is optimized, level 50, and has everything I want on it, and that's the pants. Lastly, the boots. Again, just shy of having the attributes that I want. I wanted the long-range damage on there. Radical Therapy is great, but there's a lot of other things that I could put on here that can really scale my damage up. And again, this is just a template for you guys to build around. You guys can go way beyond what I'm doing right now and hit crazy numbers. So if I'm capable of doing it at this level, you guys should be able to breeze through it when you maximize and perfect your build. Again, another one of these situations where emergency stance, that doesn't really do almost anything for me. If I get dropped in Eye of the Storm to 30%, that little bit of golem is probably not going to save me, but it's not completely useless. And ladies and gentlemen, that is my build. This is what I recommend you guys to use. So a lot of you have been asking, hey, why do you do this? I built around toxic rounds. I built for the infinite ammo build, and then I build for crowd control for Eye of the Storm around freeze, with the cold snap and the blighted converted into freeze with the helmet mod there with ice component. And when I'm running standard expeditions, I run everything else the same, except for I swap out the ice component for armor reduction on the blighted turret, and I just keep spamming those and putting the DPS out. You can gold star any activity in this game with this build. It can get pushed further if you want to. I think it's a great build. Of course, there are other ways to build the rifle, and I will probably put up a video on that sooner. If you haven't checked out Solid FPS, I'm pretty sure by now he's put up a video as well. He's one of those DPS statistical guys that has just great knowledge of it, but that is what it is. So thank you guys for supporting this video. Remember to subscribe if you're new here. I'm going to put up builds and guides for everybody else, Devastator, Pyro, so on and so forth, over the next week. So if that's something you're curious about, tune in soon. But again, thanks for all the love. If you could leave a like, it helps out tremendously. But I am going to go and put together a guide for you, and I'll see you with another one soon.